There comes a moment when the man she once overlooked becomes the man she cannot stop thinking about. The very presence she took for granted turns into the absence she can no longer handle. Why does this happen? Why does she start missing him only after he's gone? Today, we're diving deep into the hidden corners of female psychology to uncover the truth. Human psychology is strange. We rarely value what is in front of us every single day. When something or someone is always available, the brain begins to treat it as ordinary, as if it will always be there no matter what. This is why people can so easily overlook the presence of someone who constantly shows care, attention, and affection. In the case of women, when a man gives his time, his energy, and his consistency, she may unknowingly fall into a pattern of taking it for granted. She assumes that his presence is guaranteed, that no matter what happens, he will still be there tomorrow, sending good morning messages, checking on her well-being, listening to her worries, and solving her problems. In her subconscious mind, she begins to label his efforts as routine rather than privilege. But absence has a unique power that presence cannot replicate. When a man begins to withdraw, whether intentionally or simply because he gets tired of being overlooked, the woman suddenly finds herself in unfamiliar silence. The absence of constant messages feels heavier than any long conversation. The space he leaves behind becomes noticeable, and the attention she once dismissed now echoes loudly in her memory. What she once thought of as normal becomes rare, and the scarcity triggers her mind to reevaluate. This is how the human brain operates. Abundance blinds, scarcity awakens. The moment his availability decreases, her appreciation begins to increase. Absence works like a mirror. It reflects back to her the void of everything she once ignored. The good mornings that no longer arrive, the late night calls that no longer exist, the way he used to ask if she had eaten or how her day went. Suddenly, these little things begin to matter. Women are emotional creatures, deeply tied to attachment and connection. So when the connection weakens or disappears, the emotions it used to feed start demanding attention. She may not have realized how much those gestures impacted her mood or gave her a sense of security, but the lack of them begins to expose the truth. What she once brushed aside now transforms into a longing that quietly grows inside her. There is also a psychological principle known as the contrast effect. When something is consistently present, the mind cannot fully measure its value because there is no contrast. Imagine living in constant light. You do not realize its significance until darkness arrives. In the same way, when a man is constantly present, his importance blurs into the background. But once his absence enters the picture, the contrast becomes undeniable. She feels the difference between what life was with him and what it has become without him. This difference creates the first spark of realization. The things she dismissed as ordinary now appear extraordinary simply because they are missing. Over time, the absence doesn't just highlight what is gone, it begins to magnify emotions. Loneliness creeps in, and the woman starts replaying moments she once overlooked. A joke he told, a smile he gave, the way he noticed details about her that others didn't. These moments resurface in her memory, and each one carries more weight than it ever did before. She may not admit it openly, but internally, she begins to feel the impact of what she lost. Her mind starts to build a narrative of his importance, not because he reminded her, but because his absence forced her to see it. Absence also shifts the balance of power in the dynamic. While he was always present, she unconsciously held control. She knew she could rely on his attention whenever she wanted, but the moment he steps back, that control dissolves, and she is left with uncertainty. This uncertainty is uncomfortable because it forces her to question what went wrong, why he is no longer there, and whether she contributed to the loss. These questions stir emotions of regret, guilt, and longing, creating a deeper sense of realization. In female psychology, realization often comes too late, not because women cannot recognize value, but because constant availability tricks the mind into assuming permanence. Absence is what strips away that illusion. It teaches her that presence was never guaranteed, that his attention was not owed but given, and that losing it means losing more than just a person. It means losing the comfort, safety, and connection she once had without fully appreciating it. One of the most powerful forces in human psychology is contrast. We don't truly understand the weight of something until we are able to compare it against its opposite. Light feels brighter after darkness, silence feels deeper after noise, and love feels stronger after loss. The same principle applies to relationships, and this is where the contrast effect becomes one of the most eye-opening experiences for a woman who once took a man for granted. As long as he is consistently present, offering love, patience, and attention, she may see it as ordinary, even dull at times. But the moment life exposes her to the opposite, whether it is the coldness of another man, the lack of attention from someone new, or the emptiness of his absence, she begins to recognize the extraordinary value of what she had. When a man is always giving, his consistency can become invisible. She gets used to the daily check ins, the emotional support, the way he understands her moods without her explaining, and the patience he shows during her difficult days. All of these qualities slowly fade into the background, not because they lack value, but because they lack contrast. The human brain normalizes what it repeatedly experiences. Just as we stop noticing the rhythm of our own heartbeat until something disrupts it, she stops noticing his qualities until something disrupts his presence. This disruption can be as simple as him withdrawing his attention, or as complex as another person entering her life who fails to measure up. The contrast effect strikes hardest when she begins interacting with men who don't treat her the way he did. At first, she may not realize it. She might think, I can find someone better, or he was just average. But soon the comparisons start forming naturally in her mind. She remembers how he remembered the smallest details about her, while others don't even listen carefully. She recalls how he showed patience during her emotional storms, while others display irritation or distance. Every flaw in these new interactions highlights the strength of his character. The things she once dismissed as minor suddenly become major because they are missing in everyone else she encounters. This is where regret often begins to build. The contrast between what she had and what she now experiences doesn't just make her notice his value, it magnifies it. Human beings are wired to appreciate rarity. When something becomes scarce, its worth skyrockets in our perception. So when she no longer has his consistency, his attention, his love, or his presence, those qualities transform from ordinary to priceless. This psychological shift is not controlled, it is automatic. The mind naturally compares the present with the past, and when the past appears brighter, nostalgia and longing take root. The contrast effect also plays out internally, not just through comparison with other men. Sometimes it is simply the silence of his absence that makes her feel the difference. She wakes up one morning and realizes there is no message waiting for her. She comes home after a long day and notices that no one is asking how she feels. She faces her struggles and realizes the one person who always made them lighter is no longer there. These small yet profound contrasts between life with him and life without him carve deep realizations into her heart. The absence does not just create space, it creates perspective. In psychology, contrast is essential for awareness. Without darkness, light cannot be fully seen. Without noise, silence cannot be appreciated. Without loss, love cannot be valued. In the same way, when he is gone, she begins to feel the sharp difference between the comfort he provided and the emptiness she now endures. This contrast forces her to acknowledge his worth in a way she never did when he was present. It's not that she never knew he was valuable, it's that her mind never had the chance to measure his value against the backdrop of not having him. The contrast brings clarity, and clarity brings realization. The human mind has a way of storing emotions within memories, and those emotions are not always felt in the present moment. They lie dormant, buried in the subconscious, until something from the outside world triggers them. For a woman who once took a man for granted, memory triggers become the silent force that slowly pulls her back toward him long after he is gone. These triggers are unpredictable and often uncontrollable. They can be as small as a familiar scent, a song playing on the radio, a phrase he used to say, or even passing by a place they once visited together. Each of these seemingly ordinary moments carries the power to awaken emotions she thought she had moved on from. And in that instant, his absence becomes painfully alive again. Memory triggers are powerful because they bypass logic and directly activate emotions. She may tell herself that she is over him, that she no longer cares, or that she never truly valued him to begin with. But when a song comes on that he used to hum, or when she smells the cologne he once wore on someone else, her body reacts before her mind can control it. A flood of feelings rushes in: nostalgia, warmth, longing, sometimes even guilt. The brain doesn't distinguish between past and present when it comes to memories. It relives them as though they are happening in real time. This is why memory triggers can be so overwhelming. They force her to experience the emotions connected to him all over again, even if she has tried to bury them. There is also a psychological depth to how these triggers work. The female mind stores not just events, but the emotions tied to those events. If he once made her feel safe, cared for, or deeply understood, then every memory associated with him holds that emotional imprint. When triggered, it is not just the memory of his actions that resurfaces, it is the entire emotional experience of what it felt like to be with him. That emotional replay can be stronger than the actual moment because the mind tends to romanticize and magnify the past when it is no longer available. His jokes feel funnier in hindsight, his patience feels deeper, his presence feels irreplaceable. The memory becomes polished by longing, and she begins to see him not only as he was, but also as how she now wishes he could be again. Even the most mundane objects can serve as painful reminders. A coffee shop they once sat in, a road they drove down together, a movie they watched side by side. These ordinary moments, once overlooked, now become symbols of connection. She can walk past a place where he once held her hand, and suddenly her heart aches with the realization of how natural it felt, how effortless his presence was, and how much she misses it now. Memory triggers don't ask permission. They invade without warning, leaving her vulnerable to emotions she cannot escape. Another dimension of memory triggers lies in repetition. The more she encounters them, the more difficult it becomes to detach. At first, she may brush off a song or laugh at an old inside joke that crosses her mind. But as the triggers repeat, different songs, different places, different scents, they create a chain reaction, reminding her of the consistency of his presence in her past life. That repetition reinforces the idea that he was not just a temporary figure, but an integral part of her emotional history. The more reminders she faces, the more she realizes how deeply he was woven into her daily life. And then comes the contrast between her present experiences and the memories triggered from the past. She may be out with new people, meeting new faces, and yet a single memory of him can overshadow the entire moment. No matter how much she tries to live in the present, the emotional weight of the past pulls her back. She remembers his attention, his efforts, his care, and suddenly those memories shine brighter than whatever she is experiencing now. This creates a cycle of longing where every trigger not only revives old emotions, but also deepens the sense of loss she feels without him. When a man gives himself to a woman emotionally, he is making an investment far deeper than money or material things. Emotional investment is about time, energy, presence, and vulnerability. It is the way he listens when she speaks about her fears, the way he remembers the little details she casually mentions, the way he shows up when she feels weak, and the way he chooses to stand by her even when she is not at her best. For a woman, this investment often becomes part of the background of her life. She may not notice it fully while it is happening because it is constant, reliable, and always available. Yet, when that emotional investment is withdrawn, it leaves a void far greater than she expected. And it is in that void that she begins to miss him in ways she cannot control. Emotional investment has weight because it builds connection. A man who invests emotionally is not just giving attention, he is weaving himself into the very fabric of her daily existence. He remembers her dreams and reminds her not to give up on them. He notices when she is quiet and asks what's wrong, even when she says she's fine. He sacrifices his own comfort just to make her feel secure. All of these gestures may feel small in the moment, but collectively they build an emotional foundation she comes to stand on. The problem is that foundations are invisible until they are gone. She only notices its strength when it is no longer there to hold her up. When he pulls back or stops investing, the shift is not just physical, it is psychological. She may still have other people around her, but none of them provide the same depth of emotional connection. Friends can listen, family can support, but the emotional bond created by a man who genuinely invested in her carries a unique intimacy that cannot be replicated. His absence is not just noticed, it is felt in the deepest layers of her emotions. It becomes a constant reminder that she once had someone who gave her the kind of love and attention that others simply do not know how to give. Another aspect of emotional investment is that it is accumulative. Every memory of his care, every conversation where he poured himself out, every sacrifice he made, all of it piles up in her subconscious. She may not consciously count them, but her body and mind register them as comfort, safety, and attachment. So when that investment is no longer being made, she does not just miss him in the present moment, she misses the entire history of his efforts. The weight of everything he gave her comes crashing down in his absence, and she begins to realize that what she thought was normal was, in fact, rare and precious. Women by nature are emotionally driven beings. Their psychology is deeply influenced by how connected and understood they feel in a relationship. When a man invests emotionally, he creates a bond that lingers even when he is gone. It is almost like planting seeds in her heart that continue to grow long after he has left. Even if she tries to ignore it, those seeds sprout through memory, through longing, through regret. She finds herself comparing the emptiness of her current state to the fullness she once felt when his emotional energy was directed toward her. That contrast makes her miss him more than any material loss ever could. What makes emotional investment so powerful is that it cannot be faked. Gifts, compliments, or surface level affection may win temporary attention, but they do not create the same lasting impact as genuine emotional presence. A man who was truly there for her, who shared his vulnerability and made her feel seen, leaves behind a mark that no one else can erase. His absence becomes louder precisely because his presence once ran so deep. She may not have appreciated it in the moment, but when she faces days without it, She begins to understand that she did not just lose a man, she lost the emotional anchor that steadied her through life's storms. When a woman realizes she has taken a man for granted, one of the most powerful emotional responses that surfaces is guilt. Guilt is not always immediate. It often comes creeping in quietly, long after the damage is done. At first, she may not recognize it. She may even justify her actions, convincing herself that he was too much, too available, or too ordinary. But as time passes and the absence grows louder, the reality begins to sink in. The same man she ignored, criticized, or undervalued was the one who gave her his best without hesitation. And now that he is no longer there, guilt settles in like an unwelcome guest, reminding her of all the chances she had to appreciate him but didn't. Regret deepens this guilt by replaying moments in her mind. She remembers the times he asked for her attention, but she was too distracted. She recalls the days he went out of his way to make her happy, but she brushed it off as nothing special. The little arguments where he chose peace over pride, the times he forgave her when she didn't deserve it, the sacrifices he made without ever demanding recognition. All of these memories resurface in the silence of his absence. What once felt normal now feels extraordinary, and with that realization comes the painful thought, I should have valued him when I had the chance. The psychology of regret is cruel because it always arrives too late. The brain replays scenarios, but it cannot change them. She may think about sending him a message or reaching out, but the fear of rejection or the reality that he has already moved on intensifies the emotional weight. Regret is not just about losing him, it's about losing the opportunity to do things differently, to rewrite history with gratitude instead of neglect. Every memory becomes a reminder of a door that is now closed, and the knowledge that she was the one who closed it without realizing the consequences. There is also a deeper layer of guilt that comes from comparison. When she meets other men who lack his patience, his consistency, or his depth, she doesn't just notice their flaws. She feels guilty for not appreciating the man who possessed the very qualities she now misses. She begins to compare what others failed to give with what he gave freely, and that comparison amplifies her remorse. She asks herself why she pushed away the man who treated her well, why she doubted his intentions, why she failed to reciprocate the energy he invested. This questioning is not just painful, it creates a cycle where guilt feeds regret and regret feeds longing. In female psychology, guilt often transforms into self-blame. She may start to wonder if she even deserved him, if her inability to value him is proof that she lost someone rare. This self-blame can become heavy because it is not directed at him, it is directed inward. She looks back at her choices, her words, her dismissive reactions, and feels the weight of accountability. Unlike anger or sadness, guilt lingers in the soul, reshaping how she views herself and her past relationships. It is not just about missing him, it is about questioning herself for letting go of something so valuable. Regret has another cruel dimension. It magnifies over time. In the beginning, she may only feel a slight ache, but as more days, weeks, and months pass without him, the regret grows. Every milestone, birthdays, holidays, special occasions, becomes a painful reminder that he is no longer there. She imagines what it would have been like if she had valued him properly, if she had nurtured the connection instead of draining it. This imagined version of reality becomes a tormenting thought, making the present feel even emptier. What makes guilt and regret particularly unbearable is that they cannot be undone. She cannot go back and change the way she treated him. She cannot rewrite the times she ignored his effort or dismissed his love. All she can do is live with the weight of knowing that she had something rare, something genuine, and she let it slip through her hands. There is a particular shift in a woman's psychology when she realizes that the man she once overlooked is no longer waiting for her. His silence and absence may already sting, but what truly shakes her at the core is the thought, or even worse, the sight, of him giving his attention to someone else. Fear of replacement is not simply about losing a man, it is about losing the role she once occupied in his life. Even if she did not appreciate him while he was there, the idea of another woman receiving the love, effort, and emotional investment that she once took for granted creates a level of discomfort that she cannot ignore. This fear is rooted in attachment psychology. Once someone has been emotionally significant to us, even if we undervalued them, the idea of them attaching themselves to someone else triggers insecurity. For the woman who once dismissed his presence, this fear awakens when she notices his energy shifting away from her. Maybe his responses are shorter. Maybe he no longer checks on her. Maybe she hears rumors that he is moving forward. Each sign feels like confirmation that she is being replaced. And in that moment, missing him transforms into something far deeper: panic, jealousy, and a desperate longing to reclaim what she once ignored. The thought of him with someone else forces her mind to replay everything he did for her, but now with a twist. Those same actions she once dismissed are now imagined being given to another woman. The way he used to listen to her, she imagines him listening to someone new. The way he used to laugh at her jokes, she imagines him laughing at another's words. The way he once made her feel safe, she imagines him offering that same security to someone who isn't her. This mental imagery becomes unbearable because it highlights not just what she lost, but what someone else now gains in her absence. Fear of replacement also magnifies regret. While she once had the freedom to take him for granted, she now realizes that her neglect pushed him toward detachment. She begins to feel as though she handed him away, that her actions or lack of appreciation created the space for someone else to step in. This recognition creates a spiral of guilt and fear, where she not only misses him, but also fears she has permanently lost the right to ever have him back. The thought of being replaced is not just about jealousy, it is about irrelevance. She is no longer the one who matters most, and that realization cuts deeper than any argument or disagreement ever could. In many cases, this fear pushes women to reevaluate their own worth. They start to question why they did not hold on, why they failed to appreciate his loyalty, why they assumed he would always wait. This self-questioning creates emotional turbulence because she knows that his shift towards someone else is proof of what she lost. Unlike his silence or absence, which still left some hope, the possibility of replacement removes hope altogether. It forces her to confront the reality that he has choices, that he can love again, and that she may no longer be the center of his world. Another powerful aspect of the fear of replacement is its connection to pride. Even if she did not fully love him at the time, the idea of him replacing her bruises her ego. It reminds her that she is not irreplaceable, that her role in his life was not permanent. This strikes at the core of human psychology. Nobody wants to feel forgotten. Nobody wants to feel like their absence doesn't matter. For the woman who once dismissed his value, seeing him smile with someone else or noticing that his life has moved forward without her can feel like an emotional earthquake, shaking the foundation of her own self-image. Fear of replacement is also intensified by social comparison. If the woman who replaces her seems happier, more confident, or simply more appreciated by him, the pain grows even sharper. She begins to compare herself, to wonder if the new woman values him more, treats him better, or gives him what she could not. These comparisons create internal battles where jealousy, insecurity, and longing collide, leaving her unable to escape the thought that she lost a man who is now someone else's gain. At the end of the day, remember this: your value is never truly seen until you learn to value yourself first. When you give endlessly without boundaries, you teach others to take you for granted. But when you step back, when you protect your energy, and when you stop begging to be seen, that's when the world finally notices your worth. So don't wait for someone to regret losing you. Live in a way that makes your presence unforgettable and your absence impossible to replace.